stuck in the closet with nothing to do gives you such a crick in the neck.
I'm a little worse for wear. Wouldn't mind reviewing some action figures as a warm-up.
Oh, come on, you just want to let a giant adventure saving the multiverse that no one will ever know about, and you want to keep working? Nah, I say we come back here and relax. I mean, besides, there shouldn't be too much of a backlog. Oh my god!
Hello, my friends, welcome back to Player Display. Finally, we back, baby. We got our closet again. I've been kind of a lazy bastard when it's come to reviewing my figures I've been getting lately. Like, we covered all the Mortal Kombat Classic stuff, and then we also got Batman Returns, so we had some weird footnotes in there, but I don't feel like I was having the usual rhythm of output here that we usually expect. So that being said, as I mentioned before, I got a massive pile of loot from BBTS weeks ago, maybe almost a month ago at this point, so I kind of just had them, but I never got to reviewing them. So I was wondering, when I get that review kick again, I was thinking, maybe I could do a lightning review for all of them. But I decided today, you know what, hell with it, let's just do them all together. There's never been a situation like this where I'd be doing the chocolate conveyor belt from I Love Lucy style, it's like, so I'm going to see how this goes. I'm going to try committing between 5 and 10 minutes a figure as best as I can. If you're only interested in one or two of these figures, then this will be one of those rare instances where I will go out of my way to actually do some timestamps in the description. But if you watch the whole thing, hey, I hope you enjoyed the ride. I will do my damn best over here. We have the DC Classics Batgirl, we have the DC Classics Scarecrow, we have the Black Mask Batman, we have the 2-pack including Atom Smasher version 2 and Spectre, then we have the Page Puncher's Joker from Crisis on Infinite Earths, and then we have Dr. Mid-Nite, the Platinum Collector's Edition. Let's just say right now, all of them come with the exact same stand, the new style with the classic DC logo down there, except for Mid-Nite over there, because he's got that more shiny variant. So now we don't have to talk about the stand. Oh, you want to talk about the stand with each and every single figure? Oh, you didn't? Oh, perfect! So I hope you enjoyed the ride. Let's get this shit show started! Let's start with the Hell Yeah figure, and one of the very, very few occurrences of a female figure in the McFarlane lineup. This is Barbara Gordon as Batgirl, this time in the DC Classic style. We've seen a whole ton of different Batgirls over the years, but all of them are done on the exact same goddamn 3 Jokers body, which was good for the time, but man, I got so sick of it so quick. So now this has slight reuse, but also new parts, and most importantly, totally new head sculpt. So let's talk about it. They went as cartoony as possible with this brand new head sculpt, and I love it. Honestly, I already have so many Batgirls and so many versions of her. I was actually considering passing on this one, but considering how fast she sold out, I'm kind of glad I did in retrospect. Really the thing that kept me on board was the head, ultimately, just to give it that more cartoony look, and also I thought she looked very good with the Nightfall Batman from the Bane and Batman 2-pack, with the cell shading, which, speaking of that, we get that right on the cowl here, and that really does add to the figure. I know it's not for everybody. Some people would just prefer this be done in blue, and I wouldn't hold that against you, that's fair. In hindsight, I wish they did cell shading throughout the whole figure instead of just the head, so they could fully commit one way or the other. Or maybe the 2 versions? I don't know, that could have been a platinum or something, but I like this here. It does not bug me at all. I think it's great. Also, that being said, beautiful application on the blue eyes. I love the shine that they both have, and the lips. All of them greatly painted. I love that, or printed, however it's done. You also have the sculpted hair, which we also have seen with the 3 Jokers version, but here it's a lot more volumetric, a little more curly too, especially from the front. So I like that. It has a more distinct shape, and instead of kind of just dangling down, better for a more modern interpretation. But if you want to go very, very old school, as I tend to do with my collection, this is the way to go. I love this a lot. Easily my favorite Batgirl that is not the Barbara that we got from Batman and Robin, for sure. My only nitpick, and it's very minor with the head sculpt, is the eyes feel like they're just a touch far apart. Not by much. It still looks really damn good, but just inch them together a little closer by a millimeter, 2 millimeters would have been perfect. But otherwise, it's great. Very cartoony. I dig. Very sweet. Now going on down to the rest of the body, as I said, this is reuse, but not strictly from 3 Jokers. I believe the torso and maybe the midriff, those are from Spoiler, which was a figure I did pass on, just because I'm not a huge Stephanie Brown know-it-all. Barbara Gordon's kind of my gal for the Batman team-up, so that will do for me. So this whole section is from Spoiler, but not the belt and the diaper there, those are also from Three Jokers Batgirl. And it is a very good choice for reuse here. A very big embossed yellow logo on there, on the chest. Really my only complaint about this figure, I mean it would be if it was inconsistent, but at least it's throughout the figure, is the fact that there are these little seam lines in there to give it a little bit of that modernization that you would see with Spoiler. For her, it makes sense. She was a later addition to the Batman family. But for Barbara Gordon, especially since she's a classic look, I prefer she be without them. But at least between the Three Jokers parts and the Spoiler parts, they all have those grooves. There's never a point where the grooves kind of just stop. So even though I don't think it's accurate, it is consistent. So not a huge deal for me, and it's not that visible, honestly. The arms, again, Three Jokers, so you will probably recognize these three fins by now, and most notoriously the hands. They're good hands, being that they are trigger hands, which is a little odd. I mean, she doesn't really have many firearms except for her one grapple gun, and these are fine for the two accessories that she does have, which we will get to shortly. However, no alternate hands, which really sucks. That's the worst thing about this figure, easily. The fact that we don't have alternate hands because of these arms that we've seen a million times before already. You also have those really big old round wrist joints, which are pretty primitive these days. Sometimes they work fine, especially if there's like a cuff piece that covers them a little bit, but in this case they're very exposed, so I don't love them, but I don't hate them either. It's kind of just whatever, but simple little moment of, hey, let's retool that and then add compatibility for extra hands in there. That would really set this figure above and beyond. Legs, again, Three Jokers. You'll recognize all the panel lining, which I can go either way on, really. And then you get the bat motif at the top of each of the boots, and the really big padding at the bottom, and they look pretty sweet. Last thing to talk about this figure as she appears out of the box is the beautiful cape. And again, another thing that kept me on board with getting this figure. And once more, I'm really happy that I did. Similar to other comic style figures that we've seen in the past where it's got that cell shady thing going on. So it's got a black lining that has a shimmery blue outside, which is absolutely gorgeous, especially from the back. Again, it feels very Arkham Knight, digging that a lot. My one issue with it is off at the corners, and this can be said about a lot of the modern McFarlane capes, especially if they've got lining, is the bottom corners kind of pocket off. You see that they're a little gappy, so that's something I could fix up. In fact, if you look at it from the front, it's a bit rounded off. It's not quite a corner. There's like a little bit of that exposed black. It's kind of awkward. I can fix that, and I will tell you how I will do that. All you got to do is trim it just a little bit so you get that sharper corner at the end. Just don't cut the stitching, of course. And after you do that, or maybe before, you could really do it in either order, get in just a little bit of double-sided tape, just a touch, and then that will pinch things together very beautifully. Whenever I do a custom wired cape of my own, I did a tutorial of that like a year or two ago, but I've since updated my methods. But even today, I always use Scotch double-sided tape specifically. If you get cheapo double-sided tape, it will not hold, so be sure you get some good tape that's adequate enough, and it'll adhere the two pieces of cloth together just fine. No hands, as we discussed before, but as for her handheld accessories, they are reuse, though done in that very classic colors. Really dig that a lot. It was big old Batarang, which I do think came with the original Three Jokers Batgirl. As for this grappling hook, the first time I ever had this was with the Cassandra Cain Batgirl, although I don't know who was the first ever figure to have it. Actually, I think the first Batgirl ever done, I forget which one that was called, but in the original wave of McFarlane figures done at the very beginning of the line. But it's a good mold. I dig it a lot. I just wish, I'm sure a lot of people thought this way. Firstly, bendy wire. Secondly, have a removable option so you can have just the gun and then the hook on the inside. And maybe if you want to go that far, you could have it so she can hook it at her utility belt. That would have been awesome. But that being said, everything fits in her hands beautifully, so I'm just going to slot that right into here. That's fine. It's a trigger hand, so not an issue. As for the Batarang, it's so massive, which in this case I'm fine with because it's supposed to be inherently cartoony, this design. You can't really squeeze it in between the fingers. I'm sure you could, but it would stretch it out a lot. But you will see that this index finger is bent considerably up. What I like to do with most of my Batarangs, if I have that option, is just perch that right in between. Oops, kick the table slightly, and everybody else you can't see fell around me. Oops. And then she can hold it just fine. She's got some pretty kick-ass posing options. As for her trading card, let's pull that in as well, because you do have a nice succinct bio on it. Actually, it's a big bio. So, firstly, we have the art, which looks great. Again, you can see what I mean. I wish the eyes were just a touch closer together. And then off to the back, yeah, the bio, which is very extensive, really cool. When I look at this, it makes me really want an Oracle figure from McFarlane. I don't think we're going to get that at that stage of the game, but that would be nice. And that being said, I'm actually going to skip out on articulation on all these figures. I hope you don't mind. I forgot to mention that as precedent. I think everybody here except 2 are reuse, so you kind of know what to expect. So I'm not going to go into a deep dive there, but I will let you know if there's any special points anywhere. But as for Batgirl, everything's what you expect. Again, a lot of reused parts, but I guess I could show you the head articulation because this is all new. Pretty good. Let's get the hook out of the way. Pretty good down. Not bad up because of the flex between the hair sculpt and the cowl sculpt. So you do have that. And just a touch of tilt, which I really do like, and all the swivel you want. So that's fine. Everything else here is exactly what you expect. No other surprises. There goes the battering. So that's it for Barbara. Let's move on. Let's keep this crazy train going with one of 2 doctors that we have to talk about today. This is Dr. Crane, better known as Scarecrow. This one's good. I love this a lot. 100% new sculpt, unlike every single other figure that we're talking about today. Everything here is brand new, and that's wonderful. Head sculpt, hit the nail on the head, beautiful. He's got that burlap sack thing going on. Looks very much like a generic Scarecrow or a Friday the 13th Part 2 Jason. But of course, you got those really beautiful red shimmery eyes peering out. I wish that, and this isn't McFarlane's fault, it's just the nature of this wackadoo classic design. I wish that you could see the eyes better from under the shadow that this big old hat casts down. The eyes kind of just disappear in the back there. But as you see, when you turn up to the light, they really shine through. So I wish there was a way to brighten up that color so that way, that despite the shadow, it still peers through there. That would have been really great. That being said, this is for the entire figure, by the way. There's a gray wash on every single component, on every single color. It boggles me at the same time, because you have figures like Batgirl, and then even like the Black Mask Batman that we're going to look at today, where it's all reuse, pretty standard paint apps. They have this one, all new sculpt, all like premium paintwork all the way, but same price. You know, it's just a little odd there. As for the hat, beautiful. Again, great texturing and weathering, as could be said with every single nook and cranny of this figure. Some of that gray black wash on there, a little bit of that rope going around. I also wanted to pull your attention to this color piece. Again, very traditional Scarecrow. But one thing that not a lot of people talk about when reviewing this figure, I've noticed, is you actually have 2 options with this, because it is a floating piece, which is good. That'll allow for a little bit of extra articulation in the head, maybe not a ton. But there's 2 display options here. This is the default version where you've got this facing forward, but also if you flip it around, you can have sort of an Arkham Knight thing going on. We've got that noose, and you get a totally different silhouette from the collar, and you got that rope hanging down. So there's no rule against it. If you prefer this look where it flares out more and you get the noose, you can do that. So that's really great. Again, I don't think that was intended, but I like that you have that option. We go down to the torso. You got all these wraps going on. It feels very mummy. I do dig that. I almost feel like it was more of a raggedy tunic than just mummy wraps, but whatever. I dig it. Looks cool. Again, more of that wash. Dare I need say it again. Amazing. The only thing that I would criticize this base figure for, not even really a criticism, is I just wish he was a little bit more slender, especially here at the abs, a little bit here beneath the pecs, just to slim him down, because he's supposed to be a very lanky character, but it still looks great. I'm fine with it. The arms, continued detail, all unique sculpt, gorgeous stuff. More of that hay stuff trifling out of the sleeves here beneath these little cuffs. So many good details. Actually, that is a separate piece from the rest of the forearms. That's really awesome as well. As for the hands, unfortunately, like Batgirl, you only get 2. Would have been great to have alternates here. We have one opening hand. Looks like it could be clawing or gesturing as he's discussing a maniacal scheme to drive all of Arkham City insane. And then over here, you have a gripping hand for his first accessory, which is his sickle. I'd review this after the review of the base figure. But fact of the matter is, these hands are so stiff that I don't want to take this out ever again. It really is a pain in the ass to get there. But that being said, it is a nice prop. It's got that wooden grip there, and a very nice shimmeriness to the silver. I think that's because it's got the silver, a little bit of a gloss coat, and it's also not just a crescent shape. There's this battered nature to it. It looks worn, and I love that a lot. Great accessory, although I speak on behalf of many when I say I wish he'd have a scythe. That would have been excellent as well. If you have the NECA Ghostface, the first edition, he comes with a pretty good scythe that I could definitely see you adding to this Scarecrow. Just an idea for you. I've actually given that scythe to my custom NECA Death figure, so I'm not going to be doing that, but I don't know. There's always a fodder market on eBay, so I might go out of my way to do that. I'll think about it. Going down, a little bit of a skirt piece beneath the abs. Sorry, the camera's going all over the place. I apologize for that. The legs are really interesting. There's not a whole lot in the way of sculpt, but there are 2 printed patches, which is a really nice detail. I'm not seeing any other patches throughout the rest of this figure. That would have been cool to see more, maybe up here on a bicep, a tricep, just to add a little bit more of that motif. I dig that so much. Maybe even have them be different colors. Reminds me of Ragman, a figure that I passed on, but that would have been cool to continue that motif a little more predominantly. He's got one of those knee problems that you see on a lot of McFarlane figures where the color's a little mismatched with everything that's going on. I guess the color's okay, it's just everything else kind of has that natural plastic sheen, but the knees feel a touch more matte. Granted, this whole figure should be more matte because this dude's just cloth, really, and some hay. But it's fine. There's so many details and shapes going on here. It's not that noticeable. And down here at the feet, you got these interesting raggy bottoms of the pants, which almost feel like tree stumps, which is very interesting. I like that. But there is enough clearance where you can get some good foot articulation, though the rocker might be a little stiff, so do keep that in mind. You got your toe articulation and stuff, which is good as well. And we actually do have one more accessory here, and that is just a generic little skull. This is different from what we saw with the Mr. Bones figure, of course, being that it's a whole different sculpt, and there's no hole at the bottom there. It almost looks like it was filled in. Maybe this was open for a previous figure, maybe a spawn or something. So it's a shame that they wouldn't have just left that open so you could do whatever the hell you want with it, but it's good. Looks nice. Generic, not too stylized or anything. Black wash to bring out the ports in the eyes, a little bit of teeth in the jaw, so that's pretty good. And as for getting that in his hand, it's pretty simple. You just gotta push it inward from the back, jaw facing forward, and you can hold that just fine, unless you are throwing him around like me, and it might roll away, so do be mindful of that. But yeah, he looks pretty damn good. He's got some really great presence. And lastly, of course, because we're now talking about the stands, we have his trading card. Love the art a lot. I do wish that they would have went with one of his debut appearances in the comics. It's a little bit more rebirthy than I like, but it's still really cool. And off to the back, another pretty strong bio. But again, it pisses me off a little bit because we just reviewed the Batman Returns wave and everyone had the exact same bio that was only like 2 sentences long. And then you get these standalone characters where you got like a Star Wars crawl, right? So I wish the effort was consistent. I don't dislike this figure. I wish that everybody else we're talking about here and figures we've talked about quite recently on this channel got the same attention, because this guy's great. I can even excuse the fact that he doesn't have a ton of accessories or even alternate hands because all this is new sculpt, and he has more paint than the normal average McFarlane figure, so I will give him props for that. You could argue he is the best figure that we have to talk about today. Is he my favorite? I'm not sure, but I think he's got to be top 3. That's pretty much common sense right there. Now let's hop over to Black Mask as Batman from Beneath the Mask. I guess it was a comic series or arc that happened at some point. This one's weird because despite my efforts, I went on Google to look up more source images of this specific costume. I think I only found like 1 image. I could not find a lot of information on this particular look for Black Mask. That being said, again, a lot of people have said this already, this is the only Black Mask figure in the McFarlane line. They did this Batman deep cut costume for him before they ever did a default Black Mask. Granted, you could custom make one pretty easy, but you shouldn't need to, right? So I will say that much. This is absolutely the novelty character that we're discussing. He is the least essential of everybody we've got, but he is pretty cool. I mean, if you've got a little bit extra scratch, he is interesting. If you fail the set sculpt, then you got nothing here because everything else is reuse, except for a few accessories that we will talk about. Although I will say, in the product shots of this figure, there was a more distinct wash on the face. And I was a little disappointed at first, but pulling this guy back a little bit, maybe it's best that he didn't have that wash because the face would stick out a little too much from the rest of the figure because there's no wash really anywhere else. So if he did have it and the face was too light, everything else would kind of just disappear. You get what I mean? So now the attention's more balanced throughout the very dark colors of this dude. So back to the figure and its own merits. It's basically another uniquely sculpted skull, but with two little bat ears at the top. And it is amazing. I really do like it. Very distinct skeleton face. It's not generic. It's got some character to it, similar to what we saw with Mr. Bones recently. It looks like it's done in a base dark blue plastic that has a lighter blue wash on top. Very nice teeth. See, for me, this feels less like an actual mask and more like a Nightmare Batman or something like that. So for your purposes, you could use it for that, especially since this is not a very well-known design, as Google would foretell. Even to the back, I'm just noticing this now, you even see the plates of the skull forming together and where the seams are. I really like that detail too. They could have just made this flat, but they did etch in just a little bit of extra work there, which is really wicked awesome. As for the rest of this figure, it's kind of just a generic Batman. You take this head away, it's just a Batman as far as anyone else would be concerned. The rest of this is reuse. I couldn't say specifically all the figures that went into this guy, but I definitely recognize this build from Batman 1 Million, who I do not have. This torso, I think, is a cleaned up version of the Nightfall torso, without the raised Batman logo. It's flattened out. They got more of a Hush style logo going across in the midnight blue that we see throughout this figure. On the arms, I don't recognize these either. I've never had an arm with these bracers before, but I do think this was used across a few other figures. It might have been New 52. I'm really not sure. You can let me know in the comments. And these legs, we've seen a million times before. These could have even gone with the Superman for all I know. But yeah, it's all pretty generic, same stuff. That's another reason why I thought it was worth it getting this figure for me, because he definitely recycles a lot of parts from other figures, but I don't have those figures anyways. So there was more of a reason for me to get him. This sculptor just being more unique for my uses, I suppose. He also has this big old wired cape, kind of what we saw with the Batgirl just before, but in this case, it is not it does not have a lining. It is a single piece of cloth. So that means it's a little bit more malleable, less stiff, and also you don't get that weird pocketing at the bottom corners. They're not rounded off. I mean, if you really wanted to eyeball it, slight gap, you could repair that with the tape method like I mentioned before. And of course it's wired, so you can pose this basically which way you want, and it looks really great. Although I will actually hop to the card straight away if you don't mind me changing form. I hope you can live with the shock here. Here's a trading card, and as we could see, this is one of the only images of this suit that I can find. The cape drapes over the shoulders, kind of like Michael Keaton Batman a little bit. So I do wish that they would have went wider with the cape, pushed this forward over here. It would have given him just a really awesome gothic silhouette. I mean, if I forced it, I guess he could do that, but on this other side, there wouldn't be enough slack for it to do the same. But I mean, if you push that over and turn that head, then you can get a pretty good recreation of the cover right there. So if they would have reworked the cape, have it extend a little further down the cowl there, and added more cloth, obviously, just a bigger piece in general, then you would have a lot more interesting display options. It kind of look like a statue if you just cuff the whole piece of cloth around him. That could have been really cool, but I dig this guy. Again, total novelty figure, not a requirement by any stretch of the imagination, but still very good. Anyways, let's get back to the card. I feel like I kind of just shortchanged that, but beautiful art over here. As far as I know, this is the most accurate source that we have. And off to the back, again, a very strong bio. Same old story of someone taking over Arkham and trying to dress up as Batman to be better than him. We've seen that with Two-Face, and I think Joker at one point. They just really want to be Batman. Batman envy, is that a thing? And even though this is easily the most obscure character we're looking at, for some reason, he has the most accessories, which is baffling. Although kind of makes sense when you consider the fact that he is reusing pre-existing hands from other figures. As for these two, at least, these are for sure from the Nightfall Batman from the 2-pack. Although, I guess, did these come with the original one? I don't remember for sure. But these definitely came with the 2-pack Batman. These are the open, splayed out, cramped up looking hands. They never quite looked exactly like one thing or the other to me, but they are good. As for alternate hands, he has 2 grips, which are pretty standard. Again, totally reused over here in that beautiful midnight blue with a little bit of gloss. Dig that quite a bit. And we will need one of them right about now, so we can look at one of the other accessories. So let's do a quick swap. Again, all reuse, and there's not any crazy paint stuff going on, so it should be pretty easy to do what you want there. And actually, I'm going to preemptively remove this hand as well as you look onto his other alternate accessories. The first one is just a pair of jangly keys. I hope he's a father because his kids would be in for a hell of a lot of fun. Just two keys, differently, well, keyed at the bottom. One's kind of an E and one is more of this little fork design, I guess. I don't know what you'd call it. I don't think I'm going to anger any locksmiths on this channel. And a big old ring up here, all this molded in pretty nice pearly gold. Nothing too special, no wash or anything. That would have been cool. And you could put this in the gripping hand as we have over here, which is quite stiff, so your call there. Honestly, I don't know what else these hands could be for, because they're not trigger hands, unless you want to use the X-Acto blade on the index, but control those keys fine, so we can let all the maniacs out of Arkham Asylum in a little breakout, because we do love ourselves a little jailbreak in the Batman universe. And then the last one, it's an accessory and an alternate hand. It is him with a syringe. I almost feel like a syringe would be better fit with Scarecrow, but then again, this is 100% accurate to the source art that we have over here. Very beautifully and accurately painted, with the gold being part of the metal, and then this green something in there, maybe some sort of hallucinogen to make Batman trip out and start seeing things. Again, would have been cool to have this with Scarecrow. Would have been nice if Scarecrow had an alternate hand, but I digress. If we want to pop this on, this is my favorite accessory with him. You simply port it in there, and that looks really, really great. And there is our Batman Black Mask. I do think the last thing that I would want with him, in lieu of knowing absolutely nothing about him, is having actual trigger hands. These are close, but something with a trigger finger would be good for him because Black Mask is known to have pistols, and I honestly don't know a ton about the character, but just any gun from like the McFarlane weapons packs, any of the three, that would have been cool to have that option, but otherwise, he's pretty stacked. I mean, you could write him off as just lazy reuse, but he looks good, he's fun, nice throwaway character. I dig him. What do you think? Time to push the camera way out as I look at the 2-pack, which is Atom Smasher versus the Spectre. And before I say anything else, I was looking at the McFarlane Instagram when these figures were first announced, and someone went in the comments and said something along the lines of an omniscient deity versus a baby with a cough. That's basically what you have here. You have a guy who can be big whenever he wants, and then you have the hand of God himself. Why would this fight be happening? I don't know. All I do know is I love myself some JSA, and these guys helped to fill in quite a few gaps, because I did not get that original Spectre like 99% of the global population, and they have not made an Atom Smasher yet. They've done an Atom, but not an Atom Smasher. Very different, very important. Speaking of Atom, let's start with that big boy. Straight away, I will say I like this guy for my purposes, just to kind of be this colossus in the background. I think he serves that role just fine. However, he is largely reuse and not for the better. It worked really well for the Batgirl and the Black Mask Batman. It doesn't work too well for this Atom Smasher, and we will talk about that as we go through the figure. Although there is at least one new piece, two actually, so we will look at those in closer detail. I think it would be easier to just let this guy sit, and then I'll pivot him a little bit as we talk about him, because he is tall. This head sculpt is totally new. As you can guess, elephant in the room, this is recycling most of the parts that came from the Atom Smasher from the Black Adam movie. Sorry, I totally forgot that they released him. I think you'll forgive me on that one. But the head sculpt's new. It is totally different from the movie variant. That one had more texture akin to the legs, because those are straight reuse. But as for this one, it is more streamlined and doesn't have those diamond shapes that make him look a little too much like Deadpool. Here, they went as minimalistic as they could, and I really dig it for that. When you push on in, or try to, you'll notice there is a seam going down, so it gives you a little bit of that idea that it's a cloth or spandex sort of something on there. Is done in a darker blue, not quite midnight blue like the Black Mask we had a peek at recently. There's some nice shapes done in the sculpt too. You see the ears popping out from either side, looking really good. And from the face, you also get a little bit of attitude as well. You see this eye is a touch more squinted than this one. Still feels very Deadpool. Not this figure's fault. I think this character predates Deadpool, so what are you gonna do, right? But I like that he feels a little sarcastic. Maybe he's asking a question. He finds something very strange. So I do like that. As opposed to his other JSA, more stoic Gen 1 superhero counterparts. So I do appreciate it for that. On the back, a little bit of light wrinkling in there. Again, more of that clothiness. That's it to talk about with the head. Looks fine. Actually moves better than you'd think, so that is worth mentioning. There's a lot of gap underneath, so there's a lot of which ways to move that dude. Going down to the torso, I think between the collar and right here where the first set of abs pop up, that is all new. So let's talk about that here as well. This is a place where it definitely does divert from the artwork, at least the source artwork that we're provided with on the card that we'll look at later. This is a big point of contention where you have this new part, which is inaccurate to the art and is very glossy. The rest of this figure, or at least a part of the clothing, it's all reuse, highly textured, and matte. So what they're trying to do, I guess, and it would have been totally avoidable if they made all of this new, is make it look like he's got a cloth underlay part of his suit, and then he's got armor just on the pecs and the upper two abs, which is a little odd. That's the only thing that would make sense to me. So I try to stomach that and go from there. Again, for my purposes, it looks fine. I'm not going to do anything else with him. Although, if you are not a fan of the glossiness, I suggest just giving this whole thing a dull coat and it'll look clothy enough. But that being said, the sculpt doesn't suck. I just think it's used on the wrong figure. You can see that there's all these little scratches and dents here to, again, suggest to you that it is indeed armor. You have the Atom insignia in the center of the pecs, as there should be. Very classic, love it a lot. And even on the back, a little bit on the front too, but more distinctly here, you can see that they tried making this marriage between the new armor and the old cloth, where you have, again, those polished armor portions. They have areas that are a little bit more matte and slightly differently textured, so then there can be an almost natural transition into the movie Black Adam stuff over here, there's Black Adam, and then there's Atom Smasher. God, that movie's confusing for more reasons than one. So that's proof that they're trying to suggest a transition between the two articles, but because the gloss isn't as distinct from the matte coat on the same piece that they're a part of, it doesn't quite read unless you really stare at it, and then even when you figure it out, you pull it back, and it all kind of just disappears again, so it's kind of for naught. As for the arms, I do think these are new, except for the bracers. From bicep to elbow and upper forearm, that's all new. Bracers are reuse, although I do think it is good reuse, again, from the movie variant, where they're kind of silvered up. They look like van bracers, like Wonder Woman. They do the job for me. I like them. The fists, I think, are also new, although one thing I will need to mention, you will see that they hinge in and out, like so. Not when I first opened him from the box, though. They were stiff as a board. There was no moving them at all. I had to boil up some water in order to get them moving, so to prevent breakage, a la Liu Kang from the Mortal Kombat Classic 2-pack, you can watch that video if you want, see me get a little bit more mad. Yeah, warm water straight away for this guy. They had to do warm water across a lot of these figures lately, so just be wary of that with McFarlane until the DC license is gone, or if you want to stick around for the Mortal Kombat stuff. And then going on down, there's not a lot to talk about, unfortunately. From midriff all the way down to the shoes, it's all reuse, just a little bit different coloring. So over here, it maintains the blue and the red, just a little brighter. Same belt, which they could have gone with a more classic, more plain, non-worn piece. That would have been great. Diaper's the same as the movie version, same with the legs, and then the boots are also the same, although they don't work as well as the bracers as far as the repaint is concerned, because here it's all solid components. Down here it's kind of a mix between solid, a little bit of cloth. You can see that zipper holding everything together. On the movie version of this piece, it's different colors to suggest different articles making up the whole boot. So here it doesn't bother me too much, but when you do push in, you can tell that it's meant to be multiple components and not just one solid color to suggest it's all one thing. So that is a little problematic. Although it is a nice sculpt, even though it is reuse. You can see zippers down here on the feet as well. So that's pretty neat. I do like it. So again, not a great figure by any stretch, but if you just need an Atom Smasher to help support your JSA, then he's fine, I guess. And then both he and Spectre each come with their own unique card, which is good. Here's the art. Actually, I'll put these guys side by side so you can see the differences. Again, streamlined spandex from pecs all the way down to his ankles. They could have easily accomplished that here if they didn't do reuse from the movie version of Atom Smasher, and they didn't try winging it? I don't know what you'd call this. Doing the armor harness thing on the pecs, which I haven't really seen in any artistic depictions myself. If there has been, then alright, maybe I can give it a pass, but this doesn't really quite work on close inspection. Just have a generic brawler, it's fine, but if you want him to be one of your main dudes, then it's going to stick out like a sore thumb for sure. And then off to the back, big ol' bio, looking really good. Again, he is a second Atom Smasher in the chronology, so that's something worth mentioning, but he is absolutely JSA. And unfortunately, same with Spectre, no other accessories, no alternate hands, no alternate heads or faceplates. That would have been great for him, especially. So that's it. That sucks, but let's move on to Spectre. Now, here is the Spectre, one of the first superheroes ever frickin' created, and one of the strongest comic characters, period. He is all the way up there. Very high Omega level, whatever the hell you want to call him. They've done this figure once before, way back in the Monitor Build-A-Figure wave, which was an online exclusive, and for some reason, McFarlane had the gall to make each individual figure $40, so I didn't even bother. Who knows what the hell is going on in Todd's head at this point. So that being said, I was thinking ever since then, especially once I really got into JSA, especially with Dr. Fate, I'm like, ooh, I should go ahead and make a custom Spectre. And that project was on the back burner, and I'm glad it was, because they went ahead and did a second one in this 2-pack. Although, like Atom Smasher, he is largely reuse, and he also has some problems with the new stuff that they try to do, so let's go ahead and talk about it. I don't hate this figure, but he does have some problems for sure. One of the biggest points of contention with this figure that I've seen is the hood. From the product shots, I was fine with it because I do love myself some soft goods. But when you do have it in hand, you definitely notice a little bit of floppage. So it does not look great by default. Although I do believe, being the hopeful bastard that I am, if you stretch it and contort it a little bit to force it to the other side to balance it out, maybe use a dot of glue, and then that little triangle will be placed well enough on the head, but still, I see why other people would complain about this hood. It is very limp. It is very streamlined with everything else that's going on here. If this triangle meets between the two eyes, it's going to look a little too flat. It's not as volumetric as it could be, so I do see where that complaint comes from. Personally, I would have preferred they do a mixed media sort of thing where they keep the hood from the original Build-A-Figure release, and then they give him this cape, which I love, and we'll talk about that too. But yeah, this hood, it's trying really hard to be the best of both worlds, being soft goods and also having a distinct shape to it, which is very unique to Spectre, and it's just very wonky. It's going to need some work to look mediocre, and that's not a compliment by any stretch. Although if we pull this back a little bit, the head sculpt's really good. I don't know if this is direct reuse from the original Spectre, because obviously I don't own them, and I never will, but I do love the paintwork here. Although now I'm noticing this, oddly, it shows up better on camera than it does in person. You'll notice there's these little neon green yellow blemishes on the head where the cloth was laid down when he was in the packaging, but that's fine up here, because again, I'm going to try and pin down the hood in a sweet spot so I don't have to worry about that anymore. However, those same spots prevail throughout the rest of this figure, below this pec here, and most egregiously down here at the left thigh, and even here above that left knee. So that does suck. It's not the most noticeable thing because it is so light, but it does really break up the streamlined gray nature he is supposed to have in the comics from the very beginning to now. His design is largely unchanged throughout all his iterations from what I've seen. That being said, it is a good body buck. He is a character that is usually supposed to be quite swole. Sometimes he is a little bit more streamlined and narrow, but usually he is very, very bulky. I mean, he was recruited by God to protect people, so you would expect him to be a little juiced up. But the musculature is really good. I like how massive the shoulders and arms are. They are very accurate. Also, this is one of those earlier cases of sculpted wrists, which is great. I love his default hands. They're a little bit hokey, too. Very old school. They're gloves, but they got like this flared out cuff at the bottom, which I really do like. He also has this really interesting diaper thing. Part of what confuses me about this design, and this is not a critique of the figure or of the original Spectre design, but it's like, where does his suit begin and where does it end, right? Is he fully suited across this gray area here and somehow on his face, and then he's got the diaper on top of it like Batman and Superman? Or is he just totally naked here, and it's just a man running around with a hood and a cape and a diaper? Is that what we're looking at? Either way, it's a very cool and old school design, so I do really like it. Legs, exact same thing as you would see with the torso, abs, and arms, just gray, with again some of those green blemishes. I'll see if I can wipe them away, but I doubt it. Yeah, just a simple friction is not going to do it. I could try my black eraser method. Sometimes I get lucky with that, but we'll see. And then down to the feet, kind of similar motif to the gloves, where again, got just a shoe, which has a little more texture than it probably needs to, but that is nice. I'm just noticing that now. And a little bit of cuff at the top, and that looks really cool. I like how it flares back. It's a little like elfish. I dig that. It's nice. Another thing that I really love with this figure, contrary to the original one, I think this is an improvement for my usage, is the way that the cape is mounted in. Again, this is accurate to the original comics, even though it doesn't really make any sense, but the cape drives directly into his body rather than it kind of connecting towards the center. On the artwork that they went with, which I don't think is the correct artwork that they should have gone with, it does connect, but here it's kind of just planted straight into the neck. Although it doesn't bug me, it might bug you, there is a distinct seam where that neck sculpt meets the rest of the pec sculpt, so you will see that separation. Otherwise, speaking of the cape, that might be the best part of this figure and the best upgrade. Look how beautiful that is. I love the green. I love the wiring, not just on the sides, but the bottom too. Personally, I'm not a big fan of that bottom wiring, but honestly, there's nothing wrong with it. It's just simply a learning curve. I'm just not too used to it. I usually prefer it just on left and right, and that's it. But on the bottom, you can see I kind of already positioned it in a way where it can bunch up pretty naturally down there, kind of do a zigzaggy sort of thing, a little swirly, and then it lies down pretty gorgeously. And if you want it stretching out, you can pull all the way up. There's a lot of cloth here. The amount of cloth here is what I wish they would have given to Black Mask in his Batman suit. But otherwise, really great cape. If you don't mind it being a little cumbersome because of all the wire and how much girth it has. It's big. But fitting for this guy who's supposed to be larger than life, recruited by the big boy upstairs. So that's fair enough. So yeah, it's definitely not a perfect figure, definitely not the best figure, though I would say he is one of the most disappointing, both him and Atom Smasher, just because there's a lot of reuse. On him, it's not a big deal, but on Atom Smasher, it certainly is. But also just the color and material choices for him are pretty egregious, to say the least. And once again, no accessories. So I get it, this is an older figure, but they definitely could have made alternate hands for him, like some conjuring hands, an extra fist over here. I don't know what you're going to do with a grip hand for this guy. What does he need to hold? He's one of the most powerful cosmic characters in comics, in all of fictional lore. You want him to do some spellcasting stuff, like with Dr. Fate, how to make him custom hands, because he had a fist in the grip too, I believe. So yeah, you just got to give these guys some extra finessing, which is unfortunate. There's no excuse to not give them alternate hands at this point. And then lastly, of course, we have his trading card. Again, we'll put these side by side because they are quite different. This is more classic. This is more like when you have that comic cover of the original JSA around that table. This is a little more akin to that. That's what I prefer. But over here, you have the more modern depiction. This is more what the first Spectre figure was harkening back to. So this is inaccurate, I would say. Although, again, on the back, pretty strong bio. You got Jim Corrigan there. Pretty solid. I do like it. Now it's time to change formats and lines, because this is Page Punchers, and I believe they are DC Direct and not Multiverse. So that being said, this is the DC Direct Joker from Crisis on Infinite Earths. I believe the first multiversal event in comics. I brought absolutely everyone and everybody into one room. So kind of a big deal, although it is before my time and I'm not a huge comic reader, so I couldn't speak to the story much beyond that, but it's a big deal. And look at this kick-ass comic cover over here. Actually, we'll start with that before I go forward and I forget. But it is seriously wicked awesome. Got Crisis of Infinite Earths up there, and this beautiful collage of all your fan favorite villains just charging towards something or from something. Is that Brainiac in the back? It might be. But as for Joker, of course, he's the main guy. He's got this whole quadrant devoted to him, which is pretty great. As for the pages on the inside, I don't know if it's a full comic or a portion of it, but looks very cool, very old style, and then you get some adverts at the back, and a big old DC. And now we get to the main event. Here's the Joker once again, and actually, believe it or not, I think this is the first Joker figure we're reviewing on this channel. And I can simply boil it down to this, and this is a big hot take. I'm not a big Joker guy. I think he's a character who has slowly lost his edge. I don't like the fact that his story is so convoluted and so many different iterations. It drives me a little nuts. I don't know what this character is supposed to mean, and I get it. That's a point. He's not supposed to have an origin. That's what makes him creepy and weird and spooky and edgy and all that. But it's come to the point for me where I've just found it a little pretentious, and I just think he's kind of annoying as a character. I know I might get some shit for that. I know people might be hardcore enough to unsubscribe from me for that, but all that is to say, this is my favorite Joker figure that McFarlane has done so far. My favorite version of Joker is just the wacky ass classic, not a whole lot of story, just villain of the week, not capable of that much damage. He's just an until we meet again type villain. That's the Joker I like, with that big old mad smile. The closest thing that we got to this beforehand was the Silver Age variant. A lot of people were wicked excited for it, but I didn't like it personally because it wasn't cartoony and over the top enough. But now, you open the mouth, give him a big old Cad Bane style hat and a trench coat. Oh, we're cooking. This guy's good. I like him a lot. Come on, you can't say no to this. You got the big old grimace here with the teeth, the paint on lips, the pale face, the dotted in eyes with no reflection in there, I don't think. It's just all painted right on, no shading, nothing fancy. Green hair, purple hat with the black stripe thing that all hats have. I don't know what it's called. That's what I want. Just goofy ass, wacky ass. Silver Age was close. Almost got there. This is the guy. This is my definitive Joker, easily. Oh, that being said, this is all reuse from Silver Age and maybe a few other figures before. Again, I haven't collected many Joker figures, so I couldn't quite recall. The one I was working with before was, I think, the Rebirth one with a head swap from the Toonie Terrors NECA figures, so that was just a weird hodgepodge as a stand-in. This is my guy now, absolutely. That being said, if you've collected any of the recent Joker figures, most of this is going to be pretty familiar. You got the three-piece torso over here with overcoat, vest, undercoat, whatever you want to call it, this string that passes as a bow tie, I guess, and a very plain white flower. Looking at the artwork, that is accurate, so I can't knock it. Down to the legs here, all done in purple, although, of course, with the black stripes to give him some variation. Further proof that they could do Jack Nicholson if they really did want to. You will notice a scuff. That was my fault. I had him in a little metal box for a brief window in time because I was traveling around and I wanted something to do. So I think that was a result of the metal box, but fortunately, because of the coat, that hides right up, so that's not a big deal at all. And he's got these shoes down here. Spats, are they called? I don't know shoes, but they look good. Speaking of looking really good, the trench coat is awesome. Gives him so much swagger. A lot of people hate these soft goods coats that they've been doing with this Joker, and then predominantly Jonah Hex. I've never really had an issue with either of them because I like the limp slack. I like how form-fitting they are. But at the same time, you get the other side of the argument where you could add pockets, buttons, maybe do a more leathery material. Actually, probably would prefer the pleather stuff because we saw that with Captain Boomerang and Bane, and it was way too bulky. It just didn't look right. I think a thin cloth is the way to go to get it form-fitting and natural and dropping down. But I do think you could still add a little bit more to, just buttons and stuff, just to make it feel more coaty. But then again, looking at the artwork, I'm not seeing those details either, not on the comic and not on the card. So this is accurate, like it or not. I will say, there is a mod that I did here. I do this with basically all soft goods that I have that has distinct stitch work. And this is something you can do yourself. When you fold it away, and you see sort of porous side of this cloth, which is otherwise pretty invisible, you'll see the stitch work that connects all these pieces together. And I actually took a scissor to it and cut away the excess. Just a little bit. You don't want to cut it too close to the stitching, obviously, or you'll have holes, and the whole thing could fall apart. But if you're very careful, very gingerly about it, and get rid of that excess cloth, it will be more form-fitting. If you turn the sleeves inside out and cut away the excess there as well, those will be a little bit more streamlined with the interior plastic sleeves, and they'll just move up and down a little bit better. You won't feel that rigidness as you're moving everything. So that is a mod that I've done, but otherwise, aesthetically, you're not going to notice too much of a difference. Now we can also pull away the coat a little bit. I'm not going to do it completely, just this. It's just a purple sleeve. Not a whole lot else to talk about. I'm sure you won't mind if I don't bother taking it all the way off. And then we get to the hands, and unfortunately, his one accessory, and speaking of that, no extra hands, which is another topic, but he comes with an open hand. I don't really know what this is supposed to do, though there's a free moving index finger there, so it could be an alternate trigger. And then you have this other hand here, which is more distinctly a trigger hand for this revolver. This might have been done before. I think these went with Jonah Hex. I could be wrong. I've got him in a whole other room right now, so I couldn't tell you at the moment, but it is very nicely painted, silver, wooden grip, looks good. Although I will say, you wouldn't notice straight away, I did break the finger guard there. Not a huge deal because the mold kind of gravitates back where it needs to go. But if you try it in this hand, it strains it more. That's what broke it. Put it in this hand, you still need to be a little careful, but then you'll have a better shot at getting that trigger, that finger guard, below the index. So it is better to go there. And speaking of fingers, hands, phalanges in general, that is my biggest critique with this figure. Not the coat, but the alternate hands. This was done on a base body, being the Silver Age Joker, that did have a lot of alternate hands. Not just that, but a cane and one of his wacky-ass trademark fish. Why not just throw it to this guy? I get it, it's a cover recreation, and he just has the revolver and nothing else. But he's the Joker. He's supposed to have a whole ton of crazy, wacky crap to go with him. And they've made it before. So more gesturing hands, more things for him to hold, more clown shit. And it exists already, so they could have thrown it in the appropriate colors and stuff. If you just did a part swap from the Silver Age one, I believe those gloves are white. So you could still do it. You just have to be okay with that, there being a mismatch and inconsistency. So I'll think of stocking the fodder market. But for now, for my purposes, this is fine. He looks good, but I will say he was overpriced because they didn't include the pre-existing hands that were meant for this body. So that does suck. Another last thing I did want to mention is, this coincides with the trading card, which we'll bring in right here. Again, love this art. And I didn't notice this. Someone else pointed this out, and then I saw it myself, so want to bring it to your attention. Great art. But you'll notice that they kind of took away the gun from the card. But then we go to the comic over here, and then the gun's right there. So, I don't know, it's a weird Warner Brothers thing, like weird game of telephone. I don't know what happened there, but a little odd. But go to the back, again, page punchers, DC Direct, not Multiverse. Big difference, I know. And then you got the comic issue, as well as a brief little bio. So, yeah, again, wacky-ass Joker. This is the Joker I've been waiting on. Again, alternate hands, accessories, and maybe even a head sculpt without the hat would be nice. Otherwise, I dig this fan a lot. This is my main Mr. J from here on out. How you guys doing? You feeling good? This is the last figure. We made it, so one more to go. This is the Collector's Edition Dr. Mid-Nite, more specifically the Platinum Edition, believe it or not. This guy was not on my radar at all until I saw specifically the Platinum variant being sold for a brief window of time on BBTS, and I caved. I'm like, he's JSA, he looks kind of cool. He was the first blind character in comics, I believe. He's interesting. Okay, so I picked him up. And also, I don't think there's any reviews on the Platinum Edition yet, so I could be wrong about that, but at least last I checked. So, here we are now. This is kind of one of the main events of this big old fat video that we're doing right now. He looks really great, although there are definitely problems with him, so let's talk about him. Let's start off at the head sculpt, which is the same as the Standard Edition. There's no sculptural differences, by the way. It's all repaint between Standard and Platinum. But in this case, we have a black cowl. You have a slightly sloppily done crescent golden moon at the top there. Although, I'm really liking the goggles. I did not notice this until now. I'm not even sure if the standard version has it like this, but they're outlined in silver and the lenses are green. But you can see like this shimmery stripe going down the center. I think that's really awesome. The faceplate's good. It just looks like a generic, slightly poopy pants man guy, so not a whole lot else there. Although I do feel like that would have been a good opportunity for a faceplate to be removable. I mean, they've been doing that with the deluxe theatrical editions and stuff like that, so I think this would have been a great opportunity to do it here, especially since he is a more humorous character at times. He could be singing while taking a guy to jail, so it would have been nice to add a little bit more campiness here, although this is painted more to the modern depictions. Speaking of modern depictions, let's look at the full sculpt and talk about what is different here. The original Dr. Mid-Nite suit was more done in a red and green. This one's more red and black, with some silver punched in there. Honestly, it could go either way. I think both looks are good. I think I prefer this look just a little bit more because the original one, as great as it is kind of just done in Robin color, so it's a little more confusing. But here, this guy is, well, more midnighty, more pitch black, so I do like it. But still, you got the red vest to keep him old school. I think that is unchanged from what I've seen. And this is all new mold. There's some reuse in here, but at least here, it's all new stuff. It almost looks like he's doing some sort of Shakespearean crap. I don't really know what's going on here. I think this whole thing was a masquerade outfit from what I learned briefly on my little YouTube shenanigans learning about this guy before I got him. So, yeah, that's what that is here. It's a theater outfit, so that's kind of fun. And also fun is the fact that it's not solid red. You have some dark shading over here off to the sides, which I think is really great. I don't know if the standard edition has that as well, but it's good. The belt's really great. I like the gold clasp. And even the golden rivets here, they usually just skirt right past that. But here they actually went and did the effort, which they should be doing anyways, but sometimes they don't. So at least we got it at this spot. The arms are pretty simple, so they might be reused to something, including the cuffs, I'm not sure. This is one area where I would complain about this figure. Really just its nature of being a platinum, less so the sculpt itself. Because on the standard, it's not an issue, where it is just a glove. But as for this modern depiction of him with the red and black and silver, he's supposed to have gauntlets, right? But because this is based off a sculpt, which is hearkening to the original design of Dr. Mid-Nite, here it's simply the gloves, but painted in silver. Which my brain can kind of get past, like, alright, yeah, maybe he's got silver cuffs and black gloves, alright. But at the same time, you know, like in the source that he's pulling from, being the modern depictions, it is supposed to be a solid metal something, so that would have been better. Kind of like a Ben Reilly Spider-Man sort of thing. That's what he's supposed to be wearing. And something that is absolutely 100% reuse is his hands. And this guy actually does come with multiple hands that we will talk about later. But these are actually, believe it or not, pulled from the Batman Forever Robin. Not the Batman and Robin, even though he was the first one to come out. That version of Robin didn't have alternate hands until the Forever Wave came out. For some reason, they worked backwards. I don't know why that is, but whatever. And they look fine. I mean, I think they're a little overly detailed compared to everything else we have. You see, they're very ribbed. They're very highly sculpted, but everything else is very streamlined. But either way, I still like it. I wonder if the Mr. Bones hands would be compatible with him, because those might look a little better. Just straight black, more hand gestures. I don't know. That's something I might play around with. Again, speaking to the streamline factor, same goes for the legs. I don't know if these parts are reuse. Oh, these knees are familiar. I wonder if those are straight from a Batman. Again, kind of matte as opposed to the gloss on the rest of the leg, like you saw with Scarecrow. Probably other figures I just even notice. And at the bottom, we have some really awesome looking boots. Very clunky, very wide, done in brown. Again, a little extra color to throw into here to make him a bit more special. Last thing to talk about with the base figure is the cape. You've noticed this already. It's a good material. It's the same standard material we'd expect with any of the other figures here, but no wiring. And there's no excuse for this. I mean, especially because you can definitely see there is stitch work here to imply there is a trench going down here. There's a little bit of a tunnel so that we can get a wire not just down the sides, but also at the bottom. But there's no wire, and no one knows why. And I'd say, oh, you can go ahead and custom make one and slide it in, even though you shouldn't have to do it, but you could do it. But the thing is, everything here is anchored beneath the cowl, which is great if the wire's already there. But as far as adding wire is concerned, you gotta warm this guy up and pop this out, and then you might damage the figure, so it's just not even worth the effort at this point. I might even just clip this whole thing out and either slide in wiring on my own or start from scratch and make a brand new one. I don't know. Otherwise, it sucks, because it's a great material. I love the shininess. I love that material always, pretty much. But it just looks like he's wearing a big old piece of cardboard. It's like when you're playing a video game and someone has a cape without any physics on it, and it's kind of just this big old piece of cardboard flapping at the back of them. That's what this feels like. And because it's got that stitching here, it gives it more volume in the edges and a more distinct shape, so it can't have that flow straight down. It can't dip down naturally. So, that being said, maybe if you just cut away the stitching and let it drop, it would look fine. But even then, because of this material, it would fray. So, the stitching is important to the quality of the cape. So, you're going to have to think about that. I don't know what I'm going to do here. I might leave it. I'm not sure. But considering the premium that I'd have to pay, that does suck. Although, I did know about the cape going in. But it really just does come down to Todd McFarlane at the end of the day. Not BBTS's fault. It's all McFarlane. We all know that. Again, quite a few alternate hands here because these are all reused from that Robin. Again, makes me think about the Joker and why couldn't they reuse hands for him? But I digress. He has 2 grips, not triggers, just grips, so he can hold, I don't know, does he ever have a Daredevil baton sort of thing? That would be interesting. And he also has a wide open hand and a pointing finger. So I do like those. They give him a little bit of camp. He can gesture a bit more. Those are very good. And as you mentioned before, had a look at, he comes defaulted with 2 fists, which look just fine. Proportionally, they could be a touch bigger, but otherwise, they're good. And the last thing he has, of course, is a little animal companion, which is quite rare in the McFarlane line, but it's always welcomed. This is his owl, Hootie. This is a reused piece. I think he came with the Court of Owls 3-pack. That was an Amazon exclusive. I never got it. But this guy came with one of the owls, naturally. Oh, there he goes. And I don't remember what color he was in that pack. I never owned it. But here, for my money, I love this owl a lot. He's actually a great, just a generic creature. You could drop him in really any line, any scale. You could put him with 6-inch figures. I think he'd look great. He's just a nice looking companion piece. He's very fun. Although I guess if you really want to nitpick, wouldn't have minded a neck swivel. There's always already kind of sculpted detail there to imply a neck. Maybe wings that could articulate out, like one of those penguin commandos we looked at in the Batman Returns wave. But, whatever. If you just want to do a quick reuse, this makes sense. You have a pre-existing owl, use the owl. And that being said, the unfortunate thing about this figure, which everyone complains about, rightfully so, is there's no real way to attach Hootie to his arm, as he does in the artwork. It's kind of his iconic thing. I guess you can kind of perch it between where the hand meets a wrist, and you kind of tripod it, get the feet and that tail, and kind of dip it down. Maybe there's like a sweet spot. I don't know. Yeah, maybe you could get it to balance there, but even if you did, slight breeze, slight knock of the table, he'd fall right off. So maybe just some poster tack would do it, but otherwise, very good accessory. I do like this guy quite a lot, so I'll figure out a proper way to mount him onto Dr. Mid-Nite's arms. Last thing to look at is, of course, a trading card. Again, I want to put these guys side by side so you can compare. So you see what I mean. This is a more modern depiction with modern colors, which is translated onto a figure of his original design. So that's why those gloves are off. Everything also looks good, aside from the cape not having any wiring. You have the big old full moon out there. That looks really good. And off to the back, again, it's a collector's edition. That's why you got the foil. And a really big, hefty bio, as per usual, with the other figures we've been looking at today. And speaking of today, we are done. So, hey, hell yeah, well done. Haha! As we slowly close out here, I guess I went ahead and lined up everybody from my least favorite to my favorite, just in terms of who I think the better figures are in this whole lot of figures I've acquired lately. And to wrap this up, if you are considering this your size comparison, did you miss some? I'm sure you didn't. Here we have Star Wars The Black Series Quash and Mechamuk.
I am the herald of divine power, and I see all.
Not with that floppy-ass hood, you don't. I only have one eye, and I can see better than you.
Consider yourself lucky. I can't see at all, but at least I have 2 eyes. Damn, that ain't fair. I ain't got no eyes at all. Well, at least I got a sculpted head.
No, you just shut up right about now.
And honestly, that's really all I got. By the way, Adam Smasher is here. He just can't freaking fit with this room that I'm working with right now. So I got not much more to say on these figures. All of them have strengths and weaknesses. It really just boils down to preference, who you really want to have. I think the only seriously essential ones here are Scarecrow, absolutely. I think he's the most important one to get. Joker, if you are partial to this hat and coat look, I certainly am. And Batgirl, if you don't really have a good one yet. Otherwise, the 3 Jokers one isn't bad. I'm just really bored of it. Everybody else we've talked about here, they're not needed, but they're fun to fill in some gaps and just have a little kooky, wacky fun. Otherwise, yeah, I enjoy them all, but yeah, some of them are pretty bad and have some issues. But yeah, let me know what you think about these figures in the comments. Let me know what your favorites are, what your least favorites are. If you vehemently disagree with me on any figure that I've talked about, let me know that as well, because I'm curious to see what you're thinking about this line as it's wrapping up. mercifully. And all that being said, thank you guys again for your patience. I'll do my best to keep up the pace as other stuff come in. I actually have some retrospectives planned, would you believe that? So it'll be fun to get back into that. I may or may not have ordered a pretty old Predator from NECA, so we'll talk about that later too. And also some other fun surprises in there. So hold on your butts. We'll do our best to keep going. I'm not going to let the cold slow me down. If there's anything specific you'd like me to discuss or review, let me know, and maybe I'll give me a little kick in the butt to keep going. So, all that being said, thank you guys again so much. If you like this video and you would like to see more, then please, as per usual, be sure to
Like!
Comment.
Ring the bell to be notified of our latest arrivals. And subscribe.
I was just about to say, oh, hey, look, we got a perfect balance between heroes and villains over here, 3v3. But then we got this big old giant sucker, and he throws the ratio way off, but that's a me problem. Rock on, and I'll see you all later.
Hey, you! Yeah, you! Check out this other video you might like in our sister gaming channel. It'd be real sweet if you did. Still waiting!